All right, guys, so as I stated in my first video today, is that I'm trying to cover some positive stories today because it is Thanksgiving, right? And Thanksgiving is a time in which, you know, we sit around at the table and talk about what we're thankful for and things like that, right? And like I said in my last video, guys, I am thankful for each and every last one of you. If you haven't seen that video, I just want to let you know, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Now, this story that I want to talk about today is NFL star JJ Watt, who is going to pay for the funerals of the Waukesha parade victims. Now, this is par for the course when it comes to JJ Watt, right? Who seems to step up every single time, you know, there's a tragedy or something like that. You know, for example, he raised like $40-some million for the victims of Hurricane Harvey a few years ago. Okay, the man has constantly been a shining example of what our athletes should strive to be, right? Like who they should try to be, the type of humanitarians they should strive to be, right? I mean, this guy, in my opinion, again, is one of my favorite athletes because of his charitable contributions. He really is. Okay, so I think that in the wake of this Waukesha tragedy that is going to be forgotten, right? It's important to highlight those who have not forgotten the victims, because it's not like our president cares about the victims at all, and I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. But I just want to read quickly here, you know, about what JJ Watt is doing. NFL star JJ Watt, a Wisconsin native, says he'll pick up the cost of funerals for the 6 victims of Sunday's tragic Christmas parade attack. The Arizona Cardinals defensive end, a Waukesha native who graduated from Pewaukee High School and the University of Wisconsin-Madison, made the announcement through local media this week. Fox News said JJ Watt is covering the funeral costs for everyone that lost their life in the Waukesha Christmas parade. Journalist and author Corey Jenner John wrote on Twitter, quote, "This is an amazing gesture," Jenner John wrote. "He has such a huge heart." Watt took to Twitter himself just hours after the deadly tragedy on Sunday. "Just now seeing what happened at the holiday parade back home in Waukesha tonight," he tweeted, "horrific images, truly hoping everything is going to be okay and those involved are safe. Thankful to everyone who rushed to action to help the wounded," he said. We know all about Darrell Brooks, so we really don't need to get too far into what's going on with him. Okay, he's getting too much attention as it is. He's on a $5 million bail, and last time we seen him, he was crying in court. Now, again, I just want to say, I am very, very, very proud of JJ Watt for doing this. And again, you know, he's one of my favorite athletes because he's always stepping up in a time of need to do the right thing and to contribute, right? And as an athlete, you know, he is a shining example of how our athletes should carry themselves, right? So again, you know, shout out to him for that. I think it's important to highlight this stuff. Now, our president, on the other hand, I don't have good things to say about him necessarily, as it is Thanksgiving, and you would think that in the wake of a tragedy like this, that Biden would show up to Waukesha to support the families of the victims there, right? However, that's not the case. Instead, Sleepy Joe is spending his Thanksgiving at the mansion, right? The Nantucket mansion of private equity billionaire David Rubenstein, right? So during this Thanksgiving, right? It's been, what, 3 days since the Waukesha tragedy? He's only made one statement about it. Obviously, you know, he gave his condolences and whatnot, but he hasn't visited any of the victims, right? Or the families of the victims of that tragedy. And now on Thanksgiving, he's spending it at a billionaire's mansion, right? While these other people, again, you know, are mourning the loss of their loved ones. And again, I don't expect Biden to be Superman here or to, you know, do anything extraordinary, but I just find it kind of disheartening that our president is so tone deaf that during a time like this, he doesn't even visit Waukesha or the victims at all, right? To show some support. I haven't seen any reports of him even calling the families of the victims. Now, he may have. I don't know. But I'm just saying, it wasn't reported the same way it was reported that Kamala had called the family of Jacob Blake, right? Or the fact that, George Floyd's family got all, this recognition, right? And all these condolences. And, they got to visit the White House and all this other stuff. But when it comes to the families of these victims and the victims themselves, right? The people that were injured, et cetera, they're getting swept under the rug. And that really, really, really pisses me off, because this guy's supposed to be a leader, right? He should be leading this stuff. It's one thing for the mainstream media to ignore it, because, again, they don't really have an incentive. There's no racial angle to this. Or put it this way, there's no racial angle that they want to actually talk about, right? For example, the anti-white messages that Mr. Darrell Brooks had put out there. They don't want to talk about that. The guy that committed it was black with dreadlocks, so they're obviously, again, going to try to sweep it under the rug. They tried to call it an accident, okay? They tried to call it a crash. They tried to call it everything they can to sweep it under the rug. But, again, the President of the United States, during a time like this, to me, seems to have forgot about this the same way that the media is going to forget about it. And it's really a damn shame. But let's read a little bit more here. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden are scheduled to spend Thanksgiving at a house owned by billionaire businessman David Rubenstein on the island of Nantucket in Massachusetts, the White House confirmed on Wednesday. The first family will stay at the home of their friend David Rubenstein, as they have done previously, the White House told reporters in a statement cited by the New York Times and others. The Nantucket Current was the first to report on Monday that the Bidens would stay at Rubenstein's home. Rubenstein, the co-founder of private equity firm Carlyle Group, would be traveling abroad, the Times reported. He has a net worth of $4.6 billion per Forbes. So it sounds to me like Rubenstein is not even going to be there, right? So the Bidens are just, I guess, I don't know, renting out the house, right? Maybe not renting. They're probably staying there for free, but I'm just saying they're just using the house for Thanksgiving. Interesting. Spending Thanksgiving on the Massachusetts island is a decades-long family tradition for the Bidens. Last year was an exception. The president's family remained in Delaware amid COVID-19 concerns. Again, you would think that during a time like this, with a tragedy that happened the way it happened, I mean, you would think that the Bidens would at least go and visit Waukesha, okay? Now, again, I have no issues with who Biden spends Thanksgiving with. He won't spend Thanksgiving with billionaires. It's fine. I don't have an issue with that per se. But I do have an issue with it when it's like, why have you not done more to acknowledge the tragedy that happened in Waukesha? That's my issue. And you're ignoring this tragedy while spending time in a billionaire's mansion. Again, while Americans are also experiencing, massive inflation. People can't even afford turkeys, right? They can't even afford turkeys. Again, to me, I just think it's tone deaf at the very least, right? Some people can say I'm being nitpicky, but I really don't think I am in this situation. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said in a briefing on November 19th that Biden and his wife would travel to Nantucket on Tuesday and will remain there for the Thanksgiving holiday. On Tuesday, a reporter asked Psaki in a briefing about what message it sent to middle-class Americans who are struggling to afford Thanksgiving celebrations that Biden would stay in a billionaire's compound in Nantucket. Psaki didn't confirm at the time whether Biden would be staying, but said the administration had been working to ensure Americans have more money to spend. The White House didn't immediately respond to the insider's request for comments. I mean, well, at the end of the day, it sends a bad message, right? It sends a message of Democrat elitism, right? Where you have the president of the United States, again, spending time at a billionaire's mansion while Americans can barely afford to put food on the table to buy turkey because inflation's out of control, a problem that he basically contributed to, right? And also at the same time, while we have this tragedy going on in Waukesha, right? And I don't think that if Trump was president, I believe that Trump would have visited Waukesha by now, right? I believe that Trump would have at least called the families of the victims of the Waukesha tragedy and, I guess made it public, let people know that, hey, you know what, I care, right? That you're on my heart and my mind and I'm thinking about you, right? I'm pretty sure Trump would have done that by now. But because the victims of the Waukesha tragedy are not, criminals, okay, they're old grandmas and law-abiding citizens, it seems like the Democrats don't really care about them that much. They went out here and worshiped George Floyd. They worshiped Jacob Blake, Breonna Taylor, all these other people, Ahmaud Arbery. They worship all these other people, okay? That, again, some of them were victims of tragedies. Don't get me wrong. But when it comes to other victims of tragedies, Like, again, this Waukesha incident, these people don't get the same recognition. They're not going to get to visit the White House. They're not going to get a call from the president. They're not going to have a whole ceremony, a moment of silence for them on the congressional floor, right? They're not going to get any of that. And it's just a damn shame to see how the media has ignored this incident and is moving on past this incident, even though, you know, again, if the tables were turned, if that had been a white man that had ran over a crowd of people at a Black Lives Matter parade, we would never hear the end of it. We would never hear the end of it. Never hear the end of it. Biden would be there in a second, in a heartbeat. Kamala would be there in a heartbeat. Democrats would be putting on a show. But because it's not that, right? Because there's no racial angle to be had here that they feel like they can take advantage of, you have crickets, right? You have Joe Biden instead spending time at a billionaire's mansion. I think it really goes to show what these people actually really care about in this country. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.